Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving deep into a question that has, well, it's captivated leaders and entrepreneurs for generations, really.
Mhm.
What does it truly take to build an organization that doesn't just flicker brightly for a moment, but actually endures, adapts, and truly thrives through changing times?
Yeah.
It's this quest for lasting greatness, not just fleeting success.
It is, and it's a question with no single simple answer,
Mm.
which is honestly why it's so endlessly fascinating.
Right?
We've pulled together a really rich stack of sources for this deep dive.
Mm.
Everything from strategic frameworks to leadership insights and some really compelling real-world company stories.
Okay.
Our mission today really is to track and extract those vital nuggets of knowledge, helping you understand the complex, almost alchemical interplay of strategy, innovation, leadership, and crucially, culture that underpins truly great, enduring companies.
Okay, let's unpack this. It sounds like a monumental challenge. We're going to explore how some companies gain this, well, almost unassailable advantage.
Yeah, that moat.
Exactly. And what kind of leadership truly fosters relentless innovation and how absolutely critical culture is,
Right.
both in its ability to uplift and maybe more alarmingly to destroy.
Oh, absolutely. Culture cuts both ways.
And we'll also shine a light on the common traps, those pitfalls even the most ambitious and promising companies can fall into.
Mhm.
So the idea is by the end of this deep dive, you're going to walk away with a much richer, maybe more nuanced understanding of what makes a company not just good, but truly great and built to last. So let's kick things off with strategy. That feels like the right place to start.
The bedrock.
Yeah. Our sources really emphasize that merely, participating in an important sector isn't enough. True, enduring success seems to come from offering a genuinely superior solution.
That's the key. Superior.
But what specifically is the bedrock of that superior solution? What creates that unassailable competitive advantage that lets a company not just compete, but truly dominate?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well,
Yeah.
maybe the billion-dollar question now.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is how multiple sources really converge on the idea of distinct strategic advantages.
Yeah.
These go far beyond just having a good product or service.
Okay.
Hamilton Helmer, for instance, in his work Seven Powers, talks about power, capital P, in a business context. He's trying to help us understand what fundamentally governs profitability over the long haul.
Right, not just short-term gains.
Exactly. This isn't just about making money when the market is booming.
Mhm.
It's about building a position so strong that even when a company with no power makes zero profit, maybe loses money, the company with power can still thrive.
Wow. So how do they build that?
Well, it often comes down to fundamental structural advantages, things like scale economies. Helmer explains this particularly well, especially looking at it from a fixed cost perspective.
Okay, scale economies and fixed costs. Break that down for us. How do these actually work to create such a powerful, almost brutal advantage? It makes it so hard for others to catch up.
Right. So let's peek behind the curtain for a second, the math, which is actually pretty simple but profoundly powerful. Okay, I'm ready. Helmer gives us this foundational equation. Total cost equals your variable cost per unit. Let's call that C times the number of units you produce, Q,
Okay, C times Q. Got it.
plus your fixed cost, C. So total cost equals Q plus C. Pretty basic.
Okay.
Now, what does this elegantly simple formula actually tell you? Imagine a massive manufacturing plant, huge upfront investment in machinery, maybe years of R&D, a complex distribution network.
Right, those are the fixed costs, the C.
Exactly. They don't change much whether you produce one widget or a million widgets. Now, if you're a smaller competitor, maybe a startup, your fixed costs are spread over a tiny queue, a small number of units.
So your average cost per unit stays high.
Stays really high.
Hmm.
But for the giant, that substantial fixed cost C is spread across a massive queue. Millions of units. So their average cost per unit just plummets.
Ah, okay, that creates a huge cost advantage.
A formidable cost advantage. It's incredibly difficult for new, smaller entrants or even established but less scaled competitors to match that.
So it's a barrier right from day one.
It is. The insight here is, for new players, it's not just about building a better mousetrap. It's about building a factory for mousetraps that's already operating at a significant disadvantage before you even sell the first one.
Wow.
It's not just a cost benefit. It's a foundational barrier to entry that can honestly crush nascent competition before they even get off the ground,
Yeah.
sometimes without them even realizing what hit them.
That's a powerful explanation. Really clarifies how scale can be a weapon. So it's about making it really hard for others to catch up because they just can't spread their costs as efficiently.
Hmm.
But what about when a company creates a positive feedback loop, something that almost locks in their dominance, making it nearly impossible for anyone else to compete? It's like they've created their own gravitational field.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. This is where network effects come in.
Okay, network effects. We hear that term a lot.
We do. Reid Hoffman, in his work Blitzscaling, really dives into this. He talks about how companies prioritize rapid growth and market dominance, sometimes even at the expense of short-term efficiency, especially during periods of, extreme uncertainty.
Go fast, get big.
Pretty much. It's about going fast and leveraging things like network effects to achieve massive scale quickly, building an undeniable lead before competitors can even react.
And these network effects create that feedback loop.
Precisely. They generate this positive feedback loop, allowing the first mover, or the fast mover, to build what Hoffman calls an unassailable competitive advantage. Just think about the sheer difficulty for a new entrant trying to compete once these effects really take hold. You get some great examples.
Yeah, give us some of those examples, because I think a lot of us experience network effects every day without maybe putting that specific name to them. How do they play out in the real world to create such strong dominance?
Okay, so Hoffman highlights eBay as a prime example, founded way back in 1995, right?
Ancient history in internet terms.
Practically. And yet, it remains a dominant player in peer-to-peer commerce decades later.
Why?
Network effects.
How so?
Well, the more sellers there are on eBay, the more diverse the products, the bigger the selection. That attracts more buyers to the platform.
Makes sense.
And of course, the more buyers there are, the more attractive it is for sellers to list their items there. You get this powerful, virtuous, self-reinforcing cycle.
So it feeds itself.
Completely.
Yeah.
Now, imagine you want to start a new online marketplace today. You face this monumental task of somehow attracting enough sellers to offer compelling choice and enough buyers to make it worthwhile for those sellers, all at the same time.
Right, the chicken and egg problem.
Exactly. And you have to do it without the established trust, the brand recognition, the sheer liquidity of eBay. It's incredibly hard.
Okay, that's a great example. Any others?
Airbnb is another classic. Hoffman points out its massive scale, like over 3 million listings across 65,000 cities worldwide last time these numbers were crunched.
That's staggering.
It is. For any new entrant trying to match that kind of selection and value proposition from day one, it's practically insurmountable. The value of these platforms increases exponentially with each new user or listing. It builds these immense barriers to entry.
So it really challenges that idea of markets always being fluid once a network effect grabs hold.
It creates this powerful, self-reinforcing moat around the company's position. It makes disruption an incredibly steep climb. Not impossible, maybe, but very, very difficult.
That's a powerful barrier, absolutely. It's not just about being first, but about effectively leveraging that first mover or fast mover advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond the core product itself or the platform, how does a company leverage distribution to maintain that edge, especially if they start out as just, yet another player in a crowded market?
Distribution. This is crucial and often overlooked. Google provides a fantastic example here. They show that competitive advantage isn't static. It requires continuous strategic action on multiple fronts, including distribution.
Right. We think of Google and we think search algorithm.
And it's brilliant, no doubt. Their tech is impressive and gets most of the credit. But Hoffman highlights their skillful use of the distribution growth factor as something often overlooked.
Okay.
They went from, as Hoffman's friend Peter Thiel apparently put it, yet another search engine in the late 90s.
Hard to imagine now.
Isn't it? To becoming the last search engine, the undisputed leader. And a huge part of that was strategically partnering and acquiring their way to pervasive reach.
So it wasn't just about building a better search engine, but about making sure that superior product got in front of absolutely everyone, everywhere. That sounds like ruthless execution.
It was strategically brilliant execution. Early on, they made this bold, pivotal deal to power AOL's search results.
Ah, AOL. Back when that was the gateway for millions.
Exactly. That deal helped Google grow by orders of magnitude just by integrating their service directly into this massive existing user base. It wasn't just advertising. It was deep strategic integration.
Okay, so that was the start.
Yeah, and they didn't stop there. They continued this pattern with other really smart distribution bets. Their partnership with Firefox, which was an early popular alternative browser.
Right.
The acquisition of Android, I mean, that became the world's most popular mobile operating system, essentially putting Google search in the pocket of billions.
Huge.
And then, of course, creating their own Chrome browser, which quickly became the most used web browser globally.
So they covered all the bases.
They did. These continuous multi-pronged moves helped maintain and solidify Google's distribution dominance. It wasn't just about having the best technology. It was about ensuring that technology reached the maximum number of users through every available channel, often by integrating into existing networks or, crucially, creating new ones like Android and Chrome.
Yeah.
It's really a masterclass in turning a technological lead into overwhelming market control through relentless and strategic distribution.
Okay, so strategic power sets the stage, creates that initial formidable advantage, build that moat. But as we all know, the business world is a constantly shifting landscape. Those foundations, however strong, they won't protect you from a meteor strike or, in business terms, from radical innovation.
Right, the ground can shift underneath you very quickly.
Exactly. And that brings us perfectly to our next critical pillar, how companies not only embrace change, but actively drive it. Clayton Christensen's work on disruptive technologies offers such a crucial perspective on how new markets get created, often by firms that initially seem, well, insignificant.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's not always about head-to-head competition in the main arena, is it?
Doesn't sound like it.
And this raises that really important question. How do companies with limited resources challenge established giants that seem impregnable?
Yeah, David versus Goliath.
Right. And Christensen illustrates that disruptive technologies often begin by serving totally new customers or new applications, precisely where the established players have zero incentive to compete.
Why no incentive?
Well, they simply overlook these nascent markets because they don't meet their current customers' demands or, more importantly, their established profit margins. They're just not lucrative enough yet.
Oh, okay.
He points to early hard drive manufacturers and hydraulic excavators as these classic illuminating examples that really drive this point home.
Okay, tell us more about those examples, because they truly highlight this counterintuitive idea of starting small, often with what seems like an inferior product, to eventually win big.
I mean, take the hard drive industry back in the day. The established players, the big guys, were laser-focused on creating larger, higher-capacity drives for their mainframe computer clients. Highly profitable market.
Right, serve your best customer.
Exactly. Meanwhile, this new wave of startups began developing smaller, cheaper, less powerful hard drives, totally unsuitable for mainframes.
So the big guys weren't interested.
Not at all. These drives couldn't attract the established computer makers. So these little startups had to find new customers. They ended up in emerging segments like mini computers, then desktop PCs, and later laptops. Christensen says they were selling to whoever would buy, often without a clear, predefined marketing strategy.
Just finding a foothold wherever they could.
Precisely. And in retrospect, obviously, these became enormous markets. But at the time, their ultimate size and profitability were highly uncertain, making them completely unattractive to the incumbents focused on high-margin mainframes.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the excavators?
Similar story. Early hydraulic excavators were too small and limited for traditional contractors doing large-scale mining or heavy construction. They just didn't meet the performance requirements of that mainstream market.
Couldn't dig big enough holes.
Pretty much. Instead, they found a niche digging narrow ditches for residential construction jobs that were previously often done by hand.
Ah, a job the big machines were overkill for.
Exactly. These very small jobs didn't warrant large, expensive cable-operated equipment. So the hydraulic backhoes, often attached to highly mobile tractors, became super popular for builders of large tract subdivisions.
Interesting.
The profound radical insight here from Christensen is that significant innovations often don't arise from direct head-on competition in existing markets. They come from creating entirely new market segments that the incumbents just ignore or dismiss.
So it's not head-to-head combat.
It's about creating an entirely new game where you set the rules. You grow under the radar until you become too big, too central to ignore anymore.
Like desktop publishing disrupting printing, or smartphones eating up single-purpose devices.
Exactly. Those often started as niche or seemingly underpowered solutions that evolved and created entirely new value propositions, eventually reshaping entire industries.
That's a total paradigm shift for how we think about innovation. It sounds like success requires both this broad, almost visionary perspective on market shifts, but also incredibly specific, like granular execution.
You need both.
And Peter Thiel and Blake Masters, they dive into this, right? Warning against generalized optimism. It's not enough to just be in a hot sector or have a grand sweeping idea.
Absolutely not. Teal and Masters in 0 to 1 really emphasize that no sector will ever be so important that merely participating in it will be enough to build a great company.
Just being there isn't enough.
Nope. They highlight the clean tech bubble of the 2000s as a cautionary tale. You had all these indefinitely optimistic investors betting on the general idea of green energy.
Not like the green is good.
Exactly. And they funded tons of clean tech companies that lacked specific, viable business plans. It led to a massive bubble, much like the dot-com era before it, where too many companies had the same grand idea, but no unique, concrete execution plan.
So it's a powerful caution against believing that a rising tide lifts all boats, even if the tide itself is undeniably important, like clean energy.
Precisely. Even a huge societal need isn't enough if the business plan isn't sharp, focused, and unique. That must be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of entrepreneurs with really noble intentions.
You bet.
The crucial insight from Teal and Masters is that an entrepreneur can't truly benefit from macro-scale insight like green energy is important or the internet is the future unless their plans start at the micro scale, meaning offering a superior solution for a specific energy problem or a specific internet need. It's about converting that grand vision into a well-defined, executable plan that addresses a concrete, often overlooked problem for a specific customer.
Grand vision without a granular strategy equals
Profoundly prone to failure. Even in a booming, critically important market, you have to convert those big-picture trends into micro-level, actionable solutions that truly deliver unique value.
Okay, that makes sense. And speaking of grand visions and maybe radical approaches, what about the leader's role in all this? Fostering an environment where innovation isn't just allowed, but actively encouraged through bold risk-taking.
Leadership and risk.
Because that often goes against a lot of conventional, careful business wisdom, right? Which prioritizes minimizing risk above all else.
It does. And this is where someone like Steve Jobs comes into play, as Scott Galloway discusses in The Four. For all his famously difficult traits, Jobs apparently transformed Apple into a company where taking risks was its first option.
Wow, first option.
Yeah. Galloway even notes that Jobs punished careful thinking, which is a truly provocative statement about a leader, isn't it?
It really is. Punished careful thinking.
But history certainly recorded the results. When you think about it, at the time, ideas like dedicated Apple stores for retail.
Which seemed crazy then, computers in a mall.
Right. Or touchscreens on phones that ditched all the physical buttons. Or even a reheated MP3 player in the form of the original iPod. All of those initially made no sense to many market analysts and even consumers. They seemed counterintuitive, too expensive, or simply unnecessary.
So his leadership wasn't about incremental improvements or playing it safe. It was about truly radical shifts and betting big on ideas that others dismissed.
That seems to be the takeaway.
That takes a certain kind of courage. And maybe, I don't know, a certain level of authoritarian control to push it through?
Perhaps. Jobs' unique leadership style, with its uncompromising vision and that sheer willingness to bet the company on unproven concepts, allowed Apple to become, arguably, the most valuable company in the world by embracing radical ideas that initially seemed illogical or unfeasible to the mainstream.
So it challenges that conventional wisdom about careful, incremental innovation.
It really does. Sometimes, truly transformative success requires a leader willing to make bold, counterintuitive bets. And critically, an organizational culture that not only tolerates but actively supports and encourages that kind of daring.
So it's the leader and the culture.
Absolutely. It's about creating an environment where the fear of failure doesn't stifle groundbreaking ideas, where experimentation and audacious leaps are maybe even celebrated as the path to true breakthrough. It's a very high-stakes game for sure. But for Apple, under Jobs, it paid off spectacularly.
Okay, so we've talked about strategic advantage, building that moat, and then how innovation keeps the engine running, kind of the what and how of enduring companies.
Right, the structure and the fuel.
Yeah. But even the best blueprints and the most powerful engines, they need a skilled crew to operate them. Which brings us squarely to the human element.
The people. Always comes down to the people.
It does. Our sources delve really deeply into what makes effective leadership and how teams truly perform. Daniel Goleman, for instance, points out something interesting, that raw technical skills just aren't enough for leaders, which many might find surprising, right, given the huge focus on expertise and technical chops in today's world.
It is surprising to some, yeah. Goleman's research, outlined in What Makes a Leader, suggests that while intelligence, IQ, and technical skills are important, he calls them threshold capabilities, like the baseline requirements to even get in the door.
Table stakes.
Exactly, table stakes. They don't actually guarantee success in leadership, nor do they differentiate the truly great leaders from the merely competent ones.
So it does.
Well, he notes countless anecdotes, right? Highly skilled executives with amazing resumes failing spectacularly, while others with solid but not extraordinary intellectual abilities just soar.
We've all seen examples of that.
We have. And the most effective leaders, Goldman argues, are alike in one crucial area: emotional intelligence, EQ,
Emotional intelligence. Okay.
which includes a whole suite of competencies like self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skill. And his point is, these are not just nice-to-have traits. They are fundamental, measurable drivers of leadership success.
So it's less about raw processing power or technical mastery and more about understanding and interacting with others and maybe even with oneself.
That's a big part of it.
What specifically does he mean by competencies like empathy and social skill in a leadership context? How do they translate into actual tangible results?
Okay, so Goldman explains that empathy for a leader isn't about being overly sentimental or, soft. It's about shrewdly grasping the perspectives and motivations of your employees, your customers, your partners.
Understanding where they're coming from.
Exactly. It allows leaders to understand others, use that knowledge to improve their companies, anticipate reactions to new policies or product changes, and motivate diverse teams effectively. A leader with high empathy can sense the mood of the room, understand unspoken concerns, tailor their communication. It's incredibly valuable.
Okay, that's empathy. What about social skill?
Social skill he describes as friendliness with a purpose. It's the ability to build rapport, influence, persuade, manage relationships effectively, basically moving people in a desired direction.
Getting things done through people.
Right. Whether it's gaining agreement on a new strategy or building genuine enthusiasm for a new product, this moves way beyond traditional command and control leadership. It highlights the profound power of understanding and connecting with people.
Building influence, not just authority.
Precisely. It's about building genuine rapport and influence, which echoes what John C. Maxwell talks about in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. His law of influence basically says, he who thinks he leads but has no followers is only taking a walk.
Huh. Love that.
It's true, though. Without emotional intelligence, a leader might have a brilliant plan on paper, but lack the fundamental ability to inspire anyone to actually follow it.
That connection to people is absolutely vital then, a cornerstone of effective leadership. But equally crucial is clarity and discipline in decision-making, right? Especially when facing those tough choices where there isn't an obvious right answer, or maybe when emotions are running high.
Oh, definitely. High-pressure decisions.
And Peter Drucker offers some valuable insights here in the practice of management.
Drucker is always insightful on management fundamentals. He outlines these key elements of effective decision-making, stressing that it's a rigorous process. It's far more than just problem-solving.
Okay, so what's the process?
Well, the first crucial task, he argues, is not to immediately jump to solutions. It's to find the right questions, to truly understand the core issue, not just the symptoms.
Dig deeper.
Exactly. Then, you clearly define the problem itself. Identify the critical factor, the thing that really needs to be addressed. Set clear objectives for the decision, and only then do you start exploring alternative solutions.
And doing nothing is an alternative.
Critically, yes. He stresses that doing nothing is always an alternative to consider. Sometimes the best decision is no decision, at least for now. Delaying might be the wisest course.
Interesting.
Furthermore, Drucker highlights the importance of making decisions effective. And effectiveness comes through understanding and acceptance by those who actually need to implement them.
Ah, the buy-in factor.
Absolutely. A brilliant decision, conceived in isolation by a genius leader, is essentially useless if it's not embraced and executed effectively by the team on the ground.
That makes perfect sense in theory. But, in the heat of a crisis, when emotions are running high, information is scarce. How often do leaders truly have the luxury of such a disciplined, almost clinical approach? It sounds like a lofty ideal sometimes.
It is about disciplined thought, definitely. And having a deliberate process helps minimize impulsivity and maximize the chances of successful execution, especially under pressure.
So the process helps even when things are chaotic.
Exactly. Drucker's framework acts like a mental checklist. It pushes you to move from symptoms to root causes, to systematically consider alternatives, including the human impact and the need for buy-in, before you act.
Okay.
Ben Horowitz, in The Hard Thing About Hard Things, gives a great example of this kind of pressure. He talks about the challenge of prioritizing potentially good features above features that might hypothetically beat Blade Logic, their competitor.
Right, the known threat versus the unknown potential.
Precisely. Making those forward-looking decisions with imperfect information and competing priorities is incredibly difficult. Drucker's framework helps leaders navigate that complexity by breaking down the decision-making process, ensuring they ask the right questions and consider the full picture, including those crucial human elements, before committing. It's about being prepared for crisis, not just reacting to it.
That brings us nicely to how companies actually organize their people. Is it always about building teams? That seems to be the default wisdom these days, doesn't it? Teamwork makes the dream work and all that.
It does seem to be the default, yeah.
Or are there situations where a different approach is actually more effective, even if it feels a bit counterintuitive?
This is a really key distinction made by Katzenbach and Smith in the discipline of teams. They highlight two fundamental disciplines for getting work done: the team discipline and the single leader discipline.
Okay, team versus single leader.
And they argue pretty forcefully that many performance challenges do not benefit from teaming. Managers often just make uninformed assumptions that they always need a team.
Right, just default to let's form a team.
Exactly. But the choice, they assert, should be based squarely on the requirements of the performance situation or task at hand. It's absolutely not a one-size-fits-all solution, and forcing a team structure where one isn't actually needed can actively hinder performance.
Interesting. So when would a single leader approach actually be preferable? Can you give us a clearer picture of when to choose one over the other?
Sure. The single leader discipline, as they define it, is basically the sum of separate individual contributions, all directed and managed by one leader.
Okay.
Think of a classic sales organization. You often have a group of highly effective individual salespeople, each assigned to their own separate territory or accounts.
Right, they work mostly independently.
Exactly. Their collective success usually comes from the sum of their individual efforts, effectively guided and coordinated by a skilled sales manager. It's not typically a deeply interdependent team effort where they're constantly collaborating on every single pitch or deal.
Gotcha.
Katzbach and Smith also point out that time-bound goals often dictate which approach is better. For example, if a goal is set with really accelerated time pressures.
A tight deadline.
Yeah, a really tight deadline.
Hmm.
That might make the team discipline an imperative. You might absolutely need simultaneous collective efforts where people have to work together closely in real time to meet that deadline.
As opposed to.
As opposed to a more sequential integration of individual work managed by a leader, which might be perfectly sufficient if there's ample time and the tasks are naturally separable.
So it depends on the task and the timeline.
It really does.
Yeah.
This reminds us that just being a team isn't always the default best option. Recognizing when individual contributions, led by a single authority, are more effective versus when a truly collective interdependent effort is needed, that's a real sign of managerial maturity.
And clarity is key, regardless.
Absolutely. Clarity in roles and goals, especially those time-bound goals with clear milestones, is essential, regardless of whether you choose a team or a single leader structure. It's really about optimizing for the task, not just adhering to some trendy organizational philosophy.
That's a crucial clarification. Really challenges the maybe unquestioned dominance of teamwork in modern business talk. Now, part of effective leadership is also ensuring the team understands the mission and, critically, backing your own boss, even when you might not fully agree with every single decision. What do our sources say about this often overlooked dynamic within an organization, the upward management piece?
Oh, yes, supporting the chain of command. This comes through loud and clear in extreme ownership, how U.S. Navy SEALs lead and win.
Okay, lessons from the SEALs.
They state that one of the most important jobs of any leader is to support your own boss, your immediate leadership. They really stress that leaders must present the united front to the troops.
Why is that so important?
Because, as they put it, a public display of discontent or disagreement with the chain of command undermines the authority of leaders at all levels. And that, they argue, is just catastrophic to the performance and morale of any organization.
Okay, so unity is paramount. But what if you genuinely disagree or don't understand?
The principle is clear. If you don't understand a decision, you must ask those questions up the chain. You need to gain clarity, get context, maybe even offer alternative perspectives, but you do that privately, respectfully, up the chain.
Okay.
But once that discussion is had and a final decision is made by leadership, you then have to execute the plan as if it were your own. No reservations, no passive resistance.
So it's about rigorous, respectful debate in private, followed by absolute unified execution in public, even if it wasn't your first choice.
That's the discipline.
Is there an example in the book that truly illustrates this discipline and why it's so vital for organizational coherence?
Absolutely. They give an example of a SEAL officer on the ground making a difficult call not to engage a potential target. He prioritized a safer, more methodical approach based on his real-time assessment of the situation.
Okay.
Now, this decision was initially met with some frustration from his company commander, who was back at base and had a different perspective based on the intelligence he had.
So there was disagreement.
There was. However, after the officer explained his reasoning clearly up the chain, the commander, despite his initial disagreement, fully supported the decision and relayed the instruction down the line to the rest of the troops.
He backed his subordinate's call.
He did. He ensured the plan was executed without hesitation by the lower ranks. This principle is just crucial for organizational coherence, for trust, and ultimately for mission success.
So, challenge up, execute down.
Beautifully put. Constructive challenge up the chain to gain understanding and offer insights, followed by unified, unhesitating execution down the chain. It prevents internal fragmentation, maintains credibility, and ensures that the mission isn't compromised by internal disputes or perceived dissent, especially at critical moments. It's a really powerful lesson in leadership at all levels.
It makes perfect sense for high-stakes environments like the military, but it's really applicable everywhere, isn't it?
I think so, absolutely.
And what about the crucial task of getting the right people into the right roles? And maybe even harder, knowing when to make difficult personnel decisions as a company grows and evolves. It's not just about hiring good people, but hiring the right people for the right stage, which sounds incredibly complex and dynamic.
It is vital and often incredibly painful. Hoffman, again in blitzscaling, introduces this useful concept of hiring M's right now.
Yes, right now.
Yeah, someone who excels at a particular stage of a company's growth. He categorizes these stages roughly as family, tribe, village, city, or nation. Each stage requires different skills, different temperaments.
So what works at the family stage might not work at the city stage.
Exactly. And this also implicitly means knowing when to let someone go when the moment passes, because their skills, or maybe their temperament, may no longer be the best fit for the company's rapidly evolving stage.
Ouch. That's tough.
It is tough. But Hoffman argues it's necessary for hypergrowth. It's not necessarily a judgment on their competence or character, but a pragmatic assessment of fit for that specific stage and its unique challenges.
Okay. And Drucker touches on this too.
He does. From the individual's perspective in managing oneself, he talks about individuals learning where they do and do not belong. He says people should be able to say yes to opportunities where the conditions suit their temperament and strengths, and importantly, no to those that fundamentally clash, even if the opportunity looks good on paper.
So it's about this dynamic alignment, not just for the organization finding the right people, but for the individual finding the right environment where they can truly thrive.
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
How does that manifest in a real-world scenario? Can you give an example?
Sure. Consider the example Hoffman gives. A brilliant graphic designer might absolutely excel as a one-woman show at the early family or tribe stages of a company.
Right. Total creative freedom, direct impact.
Yeah, they thrive on that complete creative control, the direct impact, the fluid processes. However, that same incredibly talented designer might become less effective working as part of a larger design team in a city or nation stage company because their processes are more formalized. Collaboration is absolutely key. Consensus might be needed. Workflows are standardized. Their independent streak, which was an asset before, might now clash with the needs of the larger, more structured organization.
That makes sense.
And Drucker reinforces this. He notes that people can be technically successful, even competent, in work they have little natural aptitude for. But, he says, they can be neither happy nor successful in a job for which they are temperamentally unfitted.
Temperamentally unfitted, that's key.
It's incredibly subtle, but vital. It's not just about skill, it's about innate disposition. Someone might be technically capable of doing a task, but if their personality or their preferred working style fundamentally clashes with the demands of the role or the organization's culture, they'll likely never truly thrive. And the organization won't get their best work either.
Like forcing a brilliant lone wolf programmer into endless team meetings.
Exactly. The friction eventually becomes unsustainable for everyone involved. So this really emphasizes the need for dynamic talent management. It's not just about hiring generally good people. It's about ensuring their specific skills and their temperament align with the current and future needs of the organization.
Even if that means difficult transitions.
Even if that means difficult transitions or recognizing that a role or an individual has simply outgrown a particular stage. It reflects a pragmatic, rather than purely sentimental, view of organizational evolution, valuing fit and impact over static roles or tenure, #Tag5VO, culture, mindset, and avoiding the traps of failure.
That's a profound insight into managing talent as a company scales. And it really highlights how much people and their collective mindset play a huge role in an organization's trajectory. Howard Schultz's story with Starbucks seems to highlight this perfectly, particularly his almost counterintuitive approach to building a brand from the inside out.
It's such a powerful narrative, isn't it? Schultz explicitly states in his book, Pour Your Heart Into It, "We built the Starbucks brand first with our people, not with consumers."
First with the people. That's backward to how most marketing works.
It really is. This wasn't just some marketing slogan for him. It was a core operating philosophy. He fundamentally believed that the best way to meet and exceed the expectations of customers was to hire and train great people. And specifically, people who were zealous about good coffee.
Passionate people. Baristas who actually cared about the coffee.
Exactly. Their passion, their expertise, their genuine commitment. He argued that that made them the best ambassadors for the coffee itself and for the entire Starbucks brand experience.
So the product, the coffee, was obviously important. It had to be great. But the experience, delivered by genuinely passionate employees, was what truly resonated and built that deep loyalty. It became almost indistinguishable from the brand itself.
That's precisely the idea. Starbucks' rapid rise to becoming a national, then global phenomenon and its enduring brand strength stemmed directly from this deep investment in employees.
Treating them well, training them well.
Yes. Their knowledge and their genuine fervor created this tangible buzz among customers. It inspired a level of loyalty that went far beyond just price or product features alone.
So it's a counter-narrative to traditional marketing.
It really is. Traditional marketing often focuses solely on external campaigns, advertising, consumer perception. Schultz's approach suggests that internal culture and employee engagement are not just soft skills or, HR initiatives. They are direct, measurable drivers of brand value, customer loyalty, and ultimately long-term success.
Internal health impacts external perception.
Profoundly. It underscores that a company's internal health, how it treats, empowers, and inspires its own people, directly impacts its external perception and its ability to achieve enduring greatness. It's a really holistic, inside-out approach to brand building that many companies could probably learn a lot from.
That's a truly eliminating perspective on brand building. Build it from the inside. But a strong, unified culture, while generally a positive thing, it can also be a double-edged sword, right? Especially if it leads to unquestioning conformity or worse, that thing we know as groupthink.
Oh, absolutely. It's a real danger.
And Carol Dweck's seminal work on mindsets offers a crucial warning here.
It does. Dweck, in Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, highlights that a fixed mindset, the belief that abilities are innate and unchangeable, actually creates groupthink within organizations.
How so?
Well, in such an environment, leaders are often seen as gods who never err. Or, perhaps more commonly, workers seeking validation from leaders simply fall into line behind them because they're terrified to challenge authority or offer dissenting opinions that might make them look bad or unintelligent.
Fear of looking stupid, basically.
Yeah, or fear of contradicting the smart leader. This suppression of dissent is absolutely critical, especially when important decisions are made, because it prevents a thorough, honest evaluation of options. It leads to potentially catastrophic blind spots.
Whereas a growth mindset.
In stark contrast, a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work within an organization, allows for a full and open discussion. Ideas can be debated on their merits, not just on the status or perceived intelligence of the person proposing them. People are more willing to speak up, challenge assumptions, admit mistakes, and learn.
So a growth mindset isn't just about individual learning and resilience, but it actually fosters collective organizational intelligence, makes the whole organization smarter and more able to assess itself critically.
That's exactly it. It's vital for navigating complexity. Dweck refers to Rollotte Wood's study, which show that fostering a growth mindset relieves people of the illusions or the burdens of fixed ability.
Frees them up to think critically.
Exactly. When people believe their abilities are fixed, they avoid challenges,
Yeah.
they hide mistakes, they fear criticism. But when they believe abilities can be developed, they embrace challenges, they learn from failures, they welcome constructive feedback.
That connection is profound.
It really is. The connection between individual psychology and overall organizational effectiveness. A culture that truly embraces learning, open debate, constructive challenge, and honest self-assessment rather than fearing failure or blindly adhering to authority is inherently more resilient, more adaptable, and more innovative.
Sounds like Ray Dalio's ideas, too.
It ties in beautifully with Ray Dalio's concept of believability weighting from principles. It's not just about listening to everyone equally. It's about actively seeking out and giving more weight to the voices with the most relevant expertise and proven track records to guide critical choices. It fosters objective decision-making over pure hierarchy or, sycophancy.
Right.
Without that growth mindset permeating the culture, the risk of catastrophic groupthink increases significantly, no matter how talented the individual people are.
Speaking of dangers and catastrophic groupthink, what about companies that completely lose their way, even ones with a seemingly strong culture or a stellar reputation? The Enron saga, recounted in The Smartest Guys in the Room, just immediately comes to mind. One of the most stark, chilling, cautionary tales in modern business history.
Oh, Enron. The story is just a vivid, brutal warning against illusory culture and, frankly, fundamental ethical compromises.
Yeah.
Jeff Skilling, Enron's CEO at the time, famously described their culture as loose tight.
Loose tight. What did that even mean?
Well, it was a phrase borrowed from Peters and Waterman's hugely popular book In Search of Excellence. It was meant to imply flexible entrepreneurial management style combined with tight internal controls and shared values. Sounds good,
It's
right?
great on paper.
But the reality at Enron was far, far different. The public, and crucially Wall Street, got completely swept up in the internet mania era of the late 90s. They were willing, so eager even to swallow the idea that Enron was reinventing corporate culture.
They wanted to believe the hype.
They desperately wanted to believe. And this led to a dangerous suspension of healthy skepticism. Everyone just bought into the narrative without looking too closely under the hood.
So the hype around new economy business models allowed them to basically bypass scrutiny, created a perfect storm for deception.
Pretty much.
And what about the actual financial practices, the stuff that ultimately brought them down?
Well, the book reveals how Enron notoriously categorized what they called prepays. These were essentially loans or advance payments tied to future energy contracts.
Okay.
Any independent accountant looking at them would have immediately flagged them as debt on the balance sheet, but Enron classified them as trading liabilities.
Why? What did that do?
It was a crucial accounting trick. It effectively masked the company's true financial leverage, hid how much debt they really had, and made their balance sheet look significantly healthier than it actually was to unsuspecting investors and analysts.
Deceptive accounting. And the auditors.
Their auditors, the once renowned Arthur Andersen, were found to be incredibly sloppy and weak. They failed egregiously in their oversight duties. It's telling that Ken Lay, Enron's chairman, even complained later something like, if Andersen had done its job properly, we wouldn't be here today.
Passing the buck.
Completely.
Mm-hmm.
But the authors of the book conclude with a searing indictment. In truth, even as they angrily pointed fingers, the two deserved each other.
Wow. Collusion, almost.
It paints a picture of mutual convenience, at least. It's just a powerful lesson in how an organization can use a seemingly positive cultural descriptor, like loose tight, to mask fundamental flaws and deep ethical compromises.
And the system failed to catch it.
Yeah, alongside a catastrophic breakdown of critical external oversight from auditors, analysts, investors, even the media, all caught up in an environment of hype and suspended disbelief. It contrasts so sharply with the fundamental soundness approach that Alfred P. Sloan Jr. championed at GM decades earlier, focusing on efficiency and transparency, not passing inefficiency or deception onto the public. Enron was just a house of cards built on an illusion where the culture of loose tight really meant an excuse for having almost no meaningful controls at all.
Chilling stuff. And beyond outright fraud like Enron, there's that other insidious, often silent threat. Complacency.
Ah, yes, success breeding failure.
How do even incredibly successful established companies avoid becoming victims of their own past achievements, avoid resting on their laurels? It seems like such a natural human tendency, individually and organizationally.
It is a huge challenge, and it's a timeless warning echoed by many, including the brilliant Theodore Levitt, as mentioned in The Ultimate Business Library. His seminal concept of marketing myopia is all about this.
Marketing myopia, explain that.
Levitt emphasized that there is no such thing as a growth industry. What he meant was that industries don't guarantee growth. Companies create growth by understanding and serving customers. Success, far from guaranteeing future success, actually breeds complacency.
And complacency leads to
Complacency leads to failure. This, he argued, is a fact of business life as true in the late 1990s as it was in the early 1960s. And, I'd add, it's just as true today. It's this persistent, internal challenge for any successful enterprise.
So companies become myopic, focused inward.
Exactly. They become focused on their existing product, their internal processes, their past successes, rather than staying relentlessly focused on the evolving needs and desires of the customer.
So it's about constantly questioning your own success, refusing to get comfortable, always looking to the future and your customers' evolving needs, rather than just admiring your past achievements.
That's the core of it.
That sounds like a continuous, almost uncomfortable battle against internal inertia.
It absolutely is. Levitt also made this critical distinction between selling and marketing that's incredibly relevant here.
Selling versus marketing.
Selling, he said, concerns itself with the tricks and techniques of getting people to exchange their cash for your product. It's very product-focused, inward-looking.
Okay.
Marketing, by contrast, views the entire business process as consisting of a tightly integrated effort to discover, create, arouse, and satisfy customer needs. It's fundamentally customer-focused, externally oriented.
A completely different orientation.
Completely. So this means successful companies, the ones that endure, must constantly reevaluate their mission. They need to deeply understand customer needs, maybe even needs customers don't know they have yet, and they have to ruthlessly avoid resting on past laurels.
Don't believe your own hype.
Pretty much. It's not enough to be good today. You must continually strive to understand why you are good, who you truly serve, and crucially, what might make you obsolete tomorrow. Peter Drucker, again in The Essential Drucker, also speaks of the need for continual improvement of productivity as one of management's most important and difficult jobs. It highlights this relentless pursuit of better, this constant battle against internal inertia and complacency, as absolutely fundamental to lasting success. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. What an incredible journey through the anatomy of enduring greatness. It's been fascinating.
It really covers a lot of ground.
It really does. We've seen that building a company that truly lasts isn't about finding one magic bullet, is it?
Definitely not. No silver bullets here.
No.
Yeah.
It's this complex, dynamic interplay of smart, defensible strategy, relentless innovation, that emotionally intelligent leadership we talked about, and a resilient, adaptable culture.
All working together.
Yeah, it's about knowing when to be that first mover with powerful network effects, or when to embrace disruptive technologies by looking at those underserved niches, and crucially, knowing how to empower your people and constantly keep challenging your own assumptions.
Indeed. You know, from the disciplined thought required just to define a specific business problem accurately, like Drucker emphasized,
Right. Asking the right questions.
to the sheer courage needed to take audacious risks like Jobs did, and fostering that open discussion Dweck talks about, the lessons are pretty clear, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The pursuit of greatness seems to require this constant vigilance against complacency that marketing myopia Levitt warned about. It requires a deep understanding of your customers and an unwavering commitment to both your internal values, like Schultz showed at Starbucks, and external adaptability.
Values and adaptability.
Exactly. Maybe the most powerful takeaway is that what makes a company last isn't just what it does day to day, it's how it continually reevaluates who it is and why it exists.
Yeah.
Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, put it nicely in his book Hit Refresh. Learning to hit refresh on your purpose, your reason for being, to stay relevant.
Hitting refresh on your purpose. I like that. So as you, our listeners, reflect on the companies you admire, or maybe even on your own endeavors, perhaps consider this.
Yeah.
Is your focus just on solving today's problems with today's tools? Or are you consistently seeking out and trying to exploit new opportunities, even if they initially seem small or counterintuitive, like those disruptive innovations?
That's the critical question.
Are you building an organization that simply reacts to change, or one that tries to continually reinvent itself? The answer might just determine whether you're building something that's merely good for now or something truly built to last.